We deliberately engineered animals that spend their entire lives in physical agony, struggling simply to draw a breath. We did this on purpose, and we call them our best friends. Look at the starting line of this genetic journey. For thousands of years, the wild ancestors of our dogs possessed a perfectly adapted anatomy, built for stamina, clear communication, and survival. Now look at what we've produced. We took that functional snout and crushed it inward, collapsing the nasal passages. We took severe structural deformities and normalized them because we like the way they look. The timeline of this shift is jarring. It took over 12,000 years of gradual adaptation to create the domestic dog. But almost all of the extreme, debilitating shapes we see today were forced into existence in just the last century and a half. This widespread health crisis is the direct, measurable result of humans prioritizing specific visual traits over biological function. To understand how far we've strayed, we have to look at how this relationship began. The earliest human-dog partnerships were functional, based entirely on mutual survival in hostile environments. The historical contract was simple. Humans provided food and shelter. In exchange, dogs provided essential labor, hunting game, herding livestock, and guarding camps. This utilitarian arrangement naturally filtered for traits that kept the animals robust. Breeding decisions favored endurance, strong joints, clear airways, and overall physical resilience. For millennia, a good dog was defined by its capability and health. By selecting for utility, we maintained the structural integrity of the entire species. That biological balance collapsed in the Victorian era. As the middle class grew, dogs transitioned away from working in the fields to serving as status symbols and living art projects for the wealthy. This era saw the invention of purebreds and the creation of closed stud books. Animals were now judged as strictly against artificial visual standards. This visual represents the inbreeding coefficient, tracking how biological diversity is squeezed out to lock in specific traits. By closing stud books and mating closely related animals, breeders created a trap. Without fresh DNA, disease-causing genes collide and multiply. Today, the fallout is a massive loss of genetic diversity. The vast majority of recognized purebreeds suffer from severe bottlenecks, leaving them vulnerable to conditions that wild populations easily filter out. Isolating these animals behind rigid barriers just to preserve a specific look creates a self-reinforcing cycle of genetic decay. Selectively amplifying a single physical trait never happens in a vacuum. Pushing one part of a biological system to the extreme stresses the surrounding structures. Look at the historical bulldog. A century ago, this was an athletic breed with proportionate legs and a functional skull. But breeders decided the goal was a much wider head and a narrower pelvis. The biological cost of this new shape is severe. Modern bulldogs are now heavily front-loaded and disproportionate, meaning the majority requires surgical intervention just to mate or give birth. The dachshund suffers a similar design flaw. Elongating their spines while shrinking their legs eliminated crucial structural support, triggering an epidemic of slipped discs. This medical cross-section reveals the internal cost for pugs. The desire for a flat face meant crushing their snouts inward. This forced all the soft tissue of a normal snout into a fraction of the space, dangerously blocking the windpipe. We bred them into broken shapes, made them dependent on medical intervention, and labeled the breeds as fragile. Purebred standards today prioritize a catalog of anatomical deformities over the functional health of the species. There is a practical, scientific method to undo this damage. Progrons like the retro pug movement are using ethical outcrossing to fix these structural failures. By injecting fresh, outside DNA back into these closed genetic loops, breeders can restore longer snouts and stronger backs while eliminating inherited diseases. Yet this solution faces intense resistance. Traditional kennel clubs often prioritize an arbitrary standard of aesthetic purity over the animal's actual ability to survive. This narrow focus on a single superficial metric effectively ignores the thousands of hidden biological dependencies that keep an organism healthy. It's time we reevaluate our relationship with these animals. We have to demand biological health and structural integrity as the primary standard for any breed. Restoring their ability to run gracefully,
breathe easily, and live without constant pain is the only standard that genuinely matters.